When a rich businessman mocked a maid, he never imagined her daughter would destroy his career. In front of everyone. The Thompson mansion in Beverly Hills was glowing with morning light. Inside, an important business meeting was falling apart. Real estate magnate Edward Lawson sat stiffly at the end of the polished mahogany table, his palms sweaty as the Chinese investor across from him, Mr. Zhao, spoke passionately in Mandarin for 5 full minutes. No one in the room understood a word. The interpreter had canceled at the last minute. And now, millions of dollars were slipping away. At the side of the room, serving coffee with quiet precision, stood Maria Santos, 48, the mansion's maid. She had worked there for 7 years, always unseen, always silent. Then came the voice she dreaded, Daniel Moore, the company's arrogant vice president, known for mocking anyone beneath his status. He leaned back in his Italian leather chair and laughed loudly. "If you can translate what he just said, Maria, I'll give your mother my job." The room erupted with laughter. Even Edward forced a nervous chuckle. Maria lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't understand any of it." "Of course you don't," Daniel smirked. "But come on, you must have learned some Chinese while cleaning the dishes, right?" More laughter followed. Only Mr. Zhao didn't laugh. His face was hard, his patience fading fast. Outside the room, just beyond the door, Maria's daughter, Alina Santos, 22, heard every word. She had come home early from college and froze in the hallway, listening to her mother being humiliated. Again, Alina clenched her fists. For years, she had watched this man treat her mother like she was invisible. But this time, something changed. Because Daniel Moore had no idea who he was mocking. He didn't know that Alina had spent the last 4 years at UCLA studying international relations, specializing in the Asian market. He didn't know that she spoke fluent Mandarin, a language she had secretly learned for 7 years. And he definitely didn't know that. Within the next few minutes, his career was about to collapse. Alina took a deep breath. As laughter filled the elegant meeting room, she adjusted her university backpack and stepped forward. The bet had been made, but the game was about to change. The laughter still echoed through the elegant room as Maria Santos quietly left to refill the coffee pot. Behind the door, Alina stood motionless, her heart pounding. For years, she had endured the humiliation her mother faced, every condescending remark, every cruel joke. But today was different. Today, she had the knowledge, the skill, and the perfect opportunity to strike back. Not with anger, but with intelligence. Inside, Daniel Moore was still laughing. "Come on, Edward," he said to his boss, Edward Lawson, who sat sweating at the head of the table. "If your maid can translate a single sentence of what that man said, I'll not only give her my job, I'll pay for her daughter's college tuition." The other executives chuckled. It was the kind of cruel entertainment they'd grown used to, but Mr. Zhao, the Chinese businessman, was no longer amused. He had recognized the insult. In his culture, humiliating someone, especially an elder like Maria, was shameful. His face hardened. "Unbelievable," he muttered in Mandarin. "These men hide their weakness behind laughter." No one understood him, except Alina. Every word hit her like lightning. She knew she had 5 minutes to change everything before Mr. Zhao walked out and destroyed her mother's boss's biggest deal. She straightened her back, fixed her hair, and pushed open the door. "Excuse me," she said confidently. Walking into the room, all eyes turned to her. Edward frowned. "Who are you?" "I'm Alina Santos from UCLA's International Relations Consulting Program," she replied smoothly. "I heard you were having translation issues." "I can help," Daniel snorted. "Help? You?" He looked her up and down. A maid's daughter pretending to be a consultant? "This is a business meeting, sweetheart, not a college presentation." Alina met his gaze calmly. "Then I suggest you let me prove it." She turned to Mr. Zhao and spoke in flawless Mandarin. "Mr. Zhao, I sincerely apologize for the disrespect you've faced. It doesn't reflect the values of everyone in this room. Allow me to translate so we can continue this meeting respectfully." The room froze. Mr. Zhao's eyes widened. You speak Mandarin? Fluently, Alina replied, still in Mandarin. And I understand your frustration. Professionalism should never be compromised by arrogance. For the first time that morning, Mr. Zhao smiled. Finally, someone who understands, he said. Daniel was stunned. Wait, what did she just say? Edward leaned forward, desperate. She's speaking Chinese, perfectly. Alina looked at Daniel with quiet confidence. You made a bet, remember? You said whoever could translate what Mr. Zhao said would get your job. I'm here to collect. The room went silent. Even Maria, standing frozen by the doorway, could hardly breathe. Don't be ridiculous, Daniel shouted. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, Alina interrupted, holding up her phone. I have your words recorded. You said, if anyone can translate what he said, I'll give up my job. Edward looked at Daniel, his patience wearing thin. Mr. Zhao crossed his arms, clearly entertained now. Well, he said in English, I would like to hear her translation. Alina took a deep breath. Of course. She switched back to Mandarin and repeated, word for word, everything Mr. Zhao had said earlier about arrogance, disrespect, and how he would never do business with people who humiliate others. Mr. Zhao nodded slowly, confirming each sentence. That's correct. Every word. The executive stared in disbelief. Edward's mouth fell open. And Daniel, the once smug vice president, felt his face burn with humiliation. Alina had just turned his joke into his downfall, and she was only getting started. The meeting room was silent. So silent that the ticking of the antique wall clock sounded like thunder. All eyes were on Alina Santos, the young woman who had just turned a moment of mockery into a masterclass in professionalism. Mr. Zhao looked impressed. You've earned my respect, Miss Santos. I didn't expect to find the only person in this room capable of understanding me was not one of the executives. But the maid's daughter, Alina smiled politely. Respect is earned through actions, not titles, sir. Edward Lawson, still pale and sweating, leaned forward eagerly. Mr. Zhao, please, now that we have proper communication, perhaps we can continue the negotiation. Mr. Zhao nodded slowly. Yes, but I will speak only through her. He pointed to Alina. Daniel Moore's jaw tightened. Wait, this is absurd! She doesn't work here! Mr. Zhao's cold eyes turned toward him. Neither does arrogance. The sting of that sentence hung heavy in the air. Daniel sank back in his chair, face flushed. Alina began translating every line smoothly, her voice calm, professional, and precise. She guided both sides through tense discussions, numbers, conditions, and terms, like a seasoned diplomat. Within an hour, what had started as a disaster became one of Lawson Corporation's biggest international deals in years. Mr. Zhao smiled broadly as he signed the documents. This partnership is only possible because of her, he said, gesturing toward Alina. I trust your company will recognize true talent when it's standing right in front of you. Edward nodded quickly. Absolutely, Mr. Zhao. You have my word. Daniel forced a grin, but his eyes burned with resentment. His arrogance had turned into humiliation, and everyone knew it. As the meeting ended, Mr. Zhao shook Alina's hand. You have a bright future, he said warmly. If you ever wish to work in Shanghai, my company would welcome you. Thank you, sir, Alina replied. But there's something I'd like to settle here first. Mr. Zhao raised an eyebrow but smiled knowingly. Then I'll look forward to seeing what you do next. Once he left, Edward turned to Alina. You just saved my company millions. How can I ever thank you? Alina glanced toward her mother, who stood near the doorway, still clutching her apron. Start, she said, by giving my mother the respect she deserves. She's worked for you for years, loyal, quiet, and invisible. That ends today. Edward swallowed hard. You're right. Maria, I owe you an apology. But before he could continue, Daniel cut in, his voice sharp with bitterness. This is ridiculous. She embarrassed this company in front of an investor. She's manipulating you all with a sob story. Alina turned to him, her voice steady. No, Daniel. The only person who embarrassed this company is the man who mocked a hard-working woman to hide his own insecurity. Edward's expression hardened. That's enough, Daniel. What? Daniel snapped. Edward stood up. Effective immediately, you're suspended. We'll review your position once I've spoken with HR. The color drained from Daniel's face. You can't do this! Alina picked up her mother's tray and handed it back gently. Actually, he can. You made the bet, remember? Daniel's glare turned to disbelief as everyone stared. He opened his mouth but had no words left. Maria stepped forward timidly. Miss Alina, you shouldn't... But Alina shook her head softly. Mom, you spent your whole life cleaning up after people who treated you like you didn't exist. It's time they see your worth. Maria's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a maid, but as a mother who had raised someone extraordinary. And for Daniel Moore, the humiliation he once found amusing had just become his own downfall. A week had passed since the unforgettable meeting at the Lawson Corporation. The once haughty office had grown quieter, more cautious. The employees now whispered not about promotions or profits, but about the young woman who had walked in and changed everything. Alina Santos was no longer just the maid's daughter. She had become a symbol, proof that intelligence and grace could silence arrogance in a single moment. In the grand lobby, Maria Santos stood nervously, holding her cleaning bag. She had been called to Edward Lawson's office that morning, and she feared the worst. When she stepped inside, she found both Edward and Alina waiting for her. Edward smiled warmly. Maria, please, sit. I'm sorry, sir. If this is about that day, I didn't mean... He raised a hand gently. It's not about punishment. It's about gratitude. He turned to Alina. Your daughter didn't just save a business deal. She taught all of us a lesson in humility and respect. Maria's eyes welled up. She's always been brave. I just never thought... Edward continued. I've spoken with our board and Mr. Zhao. We're creating a new cross-cultural communications department, and I'd like Alina to head it. Maria gasped. Head it? Alina smiled softly. Yes, Mom, it's official, Edward chuckled. And as for you, Maria, I owe you a proper apology. No one in this company will ever treat you with disrespect again. From now on, you'll be part of our hospitality management team, not the cleaning staff. Maria covered her mouth in disbelief. Sir, I don't know what to say. Just accept what you've earned, Edward replied. Loyalty and dignity deserve reward. At that moment, the door opened. Daniel Moore entered, his once perfect confidence shattered. He avoided eye contact. Edward, I just came to collect my things. Edward nodded curtly. Do that quietly. HR has already processed your termination. Daniel froze. Termination? You said suspension. I changed my mind, Edward said firmly. We don't tolerate arrogance here anymore. Daniel glanced at Alina. She met his eyes calmly. Good luck, Mr. Moore. I hope one day you learn that titles don't define people, behavior does. He didn't reply. He just walked out, the sound of his footsteps fading into silence. Maria looked at her daughter with tears of pride. You've given me more than I ever dreamed of, Alina. Alina took her mother's hand. No, Mom, you gave me everything. You taught me to work hard, stay humble, and never let anyone tell me my worth. Outside, the Beverly Hills skyline shimmered in the afternoon sun. Alina stood by the window, watching the city below. The same city that had once made her mother invisible. Now, it was the city that would remember her name. And somewhere in Shanghai, Mr. Zhao raised a glass, smiling. To the maid's daughter, he said softly. The real power in that room. As the screen fades to black, Alina's voice echoes. Respect is not given by wealth or power. It's earned through grace, courage, and truth.